Hello and welcome to 20-Minute Marketing. I hope you're all having a great day and you enjoyed the previous episode 19. We have a bit of a tongue twister today as we're on episode 20 of the 20-Minute Marketing podcast. As we hit another milestone, it's always a good time to say thanks for listening, whether you've listened to one episode or all 20. I appreciate the feedback, and if you've got any suggested topics that you might want on the show, or anyone who might suit the show, or you want to be a guest yourself, then please don't hesitate to get in touch via LinkedIn or a different channel. On today's episode, we're actually recording in Sheffield City Centre in person, and we're at a small coffee shop. So there might be a little bit of background noise, but we were excited to get out and about and do something in public for a change, rather than just record remotely. So I'm going to introduce today's guest straight away. So that is James Biggin from Steel City Marketing. I'm really excited for us to get chatted. So hi James, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, Liam. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm glad we finally got a chance to sit down and record an episode. I know we've talked about it for quite a few months now, so I'm glad it's finally happening, and it's in person too, so an extra win. Could you spend 1 or 2 minutes introducing yourself and your work for us, please?
Yeah, not a problem. So I'm Managing Director of Steel City Marketing. We're a branded merchandise supplier that works UK-wide with our customer base. I'm second generation owner and MD. The business has remained in family ownership since it was established in 1980 by my father and his business partner. We are very customer focused driven, completely driven by our service tactics. A little bit more about me. I have a wife called Rachel, 2 kids, which is Rosie, who is 15, and Archie, who is nearly 12. We've got a little Sprocker Spaniel called Albie. We're quite an active and energetic family. We very sporty. We all try and do our own little bits and try and do lots of little things. And my girl is also, very talented singer as well. So bringing all of that into the company makes for a fun week, a fun working week and a fun family week.
It's nice to hear about someone's personal background as well, and not just their business background and who they work for and their company and stuff. And hopefully we can sort of see that reflected in your answers and how the podcast goes. Before we get started with asking James some questions on branded merch, again, we are in person, there might be a little bit of background noise, but hopefully that'll allow us to bounce off each other and ask some questions that are a little bit better than when we're recording remotely. So stay tuned and we'll dive right in 1 moment. So I'm really interested to talk about branded merch in a bit more detail for a few different reasons, really. First of all, it helps that we can actually visualize things. So as James is talking about different products or how companies have used things, we get to visualize it and know actually what he is talking about. Whereas on different episodes, I've been talking about software or copywriting tips or actual theory-based marketing, and it can be quite challenging as a listener to sort of take that in when there's nothing to visualize or to go away and think about. And then I'm also intrigued because I think branded merch, from my own experiences, it isn't always placed in sort of the same marketing spectrum or in the same funnel as your traditional channels such as PPC, email, radio advertising. But I've no doubt that it can be equally as effective, so I'm interested to see how it can sort of be used together with those channels to help build a brand and create better relationships. So I'll let James get started and answer some questions. I know there's going to be quite a few in this episode. So in a nutshell, James, what is branded merch in your opinion, and what are some of the ways that businesses can use it?
Yeah, well, just before we move on, you mentioned about the other channels, and I think it's really interesting to kind of acknowledge that merchandise is one of the tactics that a marketing manager or company can use to promote themselves, and I think we're very honest about the fact that we are one of those tactics, and it's how a company then weights their marketing budget in one way or another, various other angles like advertising or events. But merchandise has a very, very important part to play, we believe, and obviously the questions that you'll ask and the answers that I'll give will answer that. Merchandise is a really effective tactic. It's getting that key information in front of a company's clients or prospects, those people that they want to deal with as well as the ones that they are dealing with. That could be just something like brand exposure, so just using the branding on an item to get that awareness and repetition and make sure that your brand is in front of that client. It could also be contact information, so we champion people essentially making sure that there is at least one call to action on their merchandise when they work with us, and that's important because it makes sure that when somebody is making that key buying decision, you want to know that they're considering you for that. And it also could be other aspects of the business. It could be USPs, it could be the product or service information, and that obviously allows you to choose different products to do different things, but also making sure that anything that you're really wanting to convey to those clients or prospects is essentially done on branded merchandise, as well as everything else. So printed collateral, events, advertising. It's a whole combination of your marketing that will come together, and we're just one part of that.
And it's not just about pens and mugs or sort of office day items, is it? There's a wide range of things that I've seen on your site and shared across your socials.
That's right. It's almost limitless of what we can source and supply, which is really the exciting part of what our business and what our sector does. Pens are obviously the biggest selling category by sector without a doubt, and you've mentioned mugs as well, which are a really popular item, especially now that people are using mugs away from the office, so the travel mugs and the less of the single-use mugs and taking things into Costa where they can have refills. Essentially, any brand must consider a product that fits with their message and is right for the audience that they're targeting. And that's really important to consider. It's not a rushed decision, and it shouldn't be a rushed decision, and that's, I think, why we place so much emphasis on being more of like a concierge type service for our clients rather than the smash and grab. We want people to spend time considering their ideas and combining them with ours, and then making sure that they've chosen a product that fits with their message and is right for the audience they're targeting. And a company should always be looking, in my opinion, to make sure that they make their brand stand out at every opportunity, and I think merchandise can really help with that.
Yeah, it's funny that sort of we've mentioned like a few of the different types of products and gifts and things that you can share with other brands and clients, and a funny story about our company that we've sort of spoken about at Steel City is that they have a spin to win sort of item where you can send it to a client or another brand or someone you're working closely with, and they can use it to spin for maybe the bin or something. And we ended up using that to determine who gets to pick a tattoo for one of our colleagues, Adam, who ended up going to get a £13 tattoo on Friday the 13th. So it's funny how just something as small as essentially a piece of cardboard with a spinner on it with the name Steel City on has had an impact on our brand and the decisions that have happened inside of our company. So that's just a little bit of a cool example. Specifically target that sort of area for now. How can branded merch help businesses sort of create that lasting impact on their clients, maybe like that Spin the Wheel did for us?
Well, it's an amazing example you gave, because I remember coming in to see John and actually didn't expect to be given that example of that simple direct mailer we used, which had a branded item, it had an idea, it was sent out to make people think how they could use it, and the longevity of how long that was kept to then be used for something as funky and cool as choosing someone's tattoo is I couldn't wait to get back to the office and tell the guys, to be honest. But we know promotional items work. If they're well thought out, those items and those products are kept and used by that person for a considerable amount of time. Not only are they used, but it's also remaining as a constant reminder. And it will be seen when people are making buying decisions if it's cleverly placed. Our industry trade body, the BPMA, has got some really powerful stats about merchandise that we really champion, and I think they kind of sum up where people are at when they're using merchandise but also receiving it. The first one I'd probably pinpoint is that 83% of people purchase products or services from a company that has provided them with an item of branded merchandise. That's really quite powerful and significant, along with the fact that 87% of people have said that they have kept a promotional item for longer than a year. So if you've got your branding or call to action or products or service on that item, they are keeping it for a considerable amount of time. And I would suggest that would be significantly longer than most printed collateral. and a lot of other marketing tactics that people will use will not have that sort of longevity. And the final one is about the brand awareness, in terms of 96% of people that were questioned think that promotional products do increase brand awareness. So those are really quite considerable and powerful messages that really highlight that, for me, that it's a tactic that's probably underutilised. It's a tactic that people don't necessarily consider using first and foremost, but actually it has some real powerful statistics behind it and some real powerful results.
Yeah, I was about to one of my notes was to ask you about any statistics of companies using it or success, but I think you've covered that in quite detail, and those stats really are alarming about just how effective it can be. And another sort of question, just to follow on this sort of client aspect of it, is there a sort of a best time that brands should be sending branded merch in regards to, say, maybe the sales funnel, e.g. before someone buys, or during the onboarding process, or after a year or two when they might not be as interested in purchasing anymore? Or is there a right or wrong?
I think there isn't really a right or wrong. I think it's about making sure that if you do try something, you're familiar with how it's worked, and you try and get as accurate as you can. I think for me, regularity and consistent message is really key, because obviously loads of industries have very different habits, and therefore within those companies and those industries you've got people with very different habits. The buying decision and the sales pipeline can be very different, and equally those individuals are like a fingerprint. You never have the same one twice. So you've got to make sure that you're covering off enough bases for yourself to give you the best opportunities. I would always advise to try and keep a constant drip feed. So you could be handing out items at events, dropping in to see clients with a thank you gift. Christmas is still a big time for people to buy something to thank, and obviously I would always champion something that people can keep rather than something they can quickly consume. But using merchandise within direct mail is also really underutilised at the moment. Obviously junk mail has really almost gone now.
Yeah.
We don't really have the same levels of junk mail we used to. So that because people are now intrigued about mail when it arrives, you've got a really good opportunity as a brand to create something powerful within a client that uses merchandise combined with direct mail to your best clients or prospects that can really jump out and make an impact. So I think that it's a great to employ lots of different ways of landing items on your clients and making sure that the message or messages are being reinforced. And you're essentially trying to give your sales team and your business the best chance to be remembered, and making sure that when they need you and your services, they know exactly how to get in touch and what to do. So like I said at the start of my answer, I think it's about covering as many bases as you possibly can without overextending your budget too much.
And yeah, that's quite an in-depth sort of answer in terms of there's no right or wrong of when to send or who to send to or how many, etc. But then moving on to sort of the flip side, it doesn't have to be just for potential clients, right?
No, that's absolutely right. I think we covered off in the last question about the fact that your best clients are the ones that need to be thanked, or they need to be reminded about you. Everyone's trying to chip away at your best clients and trying to pick up business from them. So you've got to make sure that you're showing them the love, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And I would also extend that into the staff and the team as well. And I think branded merchandise, to make someone feel proud of the brand that they're representing, merchandise can be used for that, whether that's for loyalty, whether that's for new starters packs, so when people start they immediately get bought into the brand, a thank you for hard work, and also rewards, so incentives. Merchandise can be used just as effectively as an incentive as some of the other rewards that companies employ.
Yeah, that's quite an insightful answer, because I think myself and probably other people might assume that branded merch is just send it to clients or potential clients, keep them happy. But when you think the competitions or internal stuff or the starter pack, something that I really liked, gets people on board and makes it look like you're caring about them straight away. So let's talk about maybe getting started with branded merch for the first time. Someone's never done it before, not really sure what to give or how much to give. How do you determine what's right in terms of who to target, how many orders to place, etc.?
So I'd probably say that they've got to ask themselves a few key questions. That would probably be what budget do they want to put with it? And if they've answered that question quite quickly and they know where they're going to go for, it really is about what message they're trying to send out to their clients. Is it brand, or is it they're trying to make an impact on a company that actually really doesn't have any knowledge of them at all, but they wanted to make a break into that particular client base. And then I think what they've got to do is, what we would always advise is slowly. Try not to go too full on with it, because what you don't want is a store cupboard full of items that you really regret buying. So my view would be to build things up. Minimum quantities are now so low on some items because of print methods that you can actually say, well, let's see what sells really.
Yeah.
So actually use items effectively that are really, really working with clients, rather than feeling as though your fingers in the wind.
And then an interesting sort of question that I'm not sure how you'll answer, or if you can even really answer, but how do you track the success of branded merch? It's not quite as easy as setting up conversion tracking on a paid advert.
It really isn't, and I think that's probably the kind of the uncertainty of what we do. I think there are ways you can do it if you really want to spend the time. I think you could use social methods, so actually using competitions to get people to engage with you in exchange for. You can actually do things like send out pot plants that in a tub that's branded, that you can actually get people to grow and share. Yeah. So you can actually use merchandise as an opportunity to get clients to engage and share on social media when they've received it or when they're using it.
Yeah, great example again with the growing plants. It's quite a good one that no one would really think about unless they were told that it's possible. So before we move on to some of your tactics, I know you're doing some great things on socials and other channels. Let's finish off with a couple of branded merch light-hearted questions. So what is the coolest branded merch idea that you've seen come to life?
This is really hard. This is really tricky. I think some of the products that are incredible are when they are heavily engineered, but not without difficulty. So you can actually these days you can actually make USBs or power banks or even stress items in actually the shape of your own branding. And they're really interesting when that sort of comes together, or an actual product, should I say. So a product that's made into one of the items out of PVC and silicon is interesting. And then things like when you've got a mascot and you actually recreate that mascot onto branded merchandise. Those sorts of things are really cool, because that means you've got an emotional touch point, in my opinion. Yeah. You've immediately recreated something that represents you in a merchandise item.
And then another one, if all of your items cost the same, which one would you recommend sending to a client, partner, supplier, or someone to make a big impact?
So I'd probably lean towards drinkware, to be honest. I think anything that's to do with environment at the moment is having a massive impact on brands, and I think they can align themselves with a message like that. So things like the water bottles that people are using to keep hydrated but also stop single-use plastic, and also travel mugs and carry away coffee cups that people can get money off in coffee shops, but also stop the landfill of single-use cups. It is probably where I'd go.
And then one last question, what is the biggest myth in your opinion about branded merch?
I would probably suggest that it relates back to budget and cost, and that people think that they can't afford to do it and they can't afford to use merchandise within their marketing tactics. They really, really can.
Sounds good. We're just going to move away from branded merch as sort of like a marketing strategy and move towards Steel City's marketing, and then their internal tactics and how they showcase their company and the branded merch products that they have. As a brand, I know that you're really active on social media. I love what you and Jenny and the team have been doing, so I think it'll be valuable content to share. So you have lots of interest in the new products that your team gets to share all the time. Do you sort of find it challenging to keep your posts varied in order to not make it feel like you're just turning into sort of like a brochure of things that you can do?
Yeah, the ones where they are just brochure led, where it's just product, turn everyone off, I think. So I think what we've made sure we do is inject our personality into this. We're not short of items that we could show off about, so that's very clear with the thousands we can get hold of. It's just how we do it, and I think it's time. And I think if we can put some time into this, it has a massive exponential effect versus just that churn of product, which we will never do.
Yeah, I suppose you could just post 5, 10, 20 products a day non-stop, and it just, people would be scrolling endlessly, not really knowing who you are or what they're looking for.
Absolutely.
We're a bit short of time on this end section, so we're just going to sort of fly through these last questions. What sort of posts do you find have the most success for you guys when you are on socials?
I think what we're finding is the ones that have fun involved and that actually make it a little bit more humorous and show the personality of the company. They're very clearly the ones that have a massive more effect than ones that are kind of plain and just straightforward.
And I think a new channel that I've seen you using recently is TikTok. You've been sharing it across your LinkedIn and your socials. It's been a lot of fun seeing how you've done it and what you've been putting on there. So how did that come about, and do you have a strategy behind it? And if so what is it? We're
playing a little bit with it because it's obviously come from the kids, just sort of looking over their shoulders and seeing what they're doing. But once I started finding a few more of the videos that you could emulate that we could actually relate to our products, that was really interesting to try and use. The tool and the actual app itself to make some really quick, cool videos that have had a really good feedback on.
Yeah.
Really good feedback.
You've had some great numbers and of people viewing it and commenting and stuff. And we've been talking about it too. It's just how do you, as a software company, try and push that to a video on TikTok? It's quite challenging for us. But we'll get there eventually, I'm sure. You've got to keep up with the times. But yeah, I suppose is TikTok working? Do you think you're spending a lot of time on it for the short videos? Or
I think we're spending a reasonable amount of time, but it's got to kind of have an impact, and you can't just do it too easily. But I think what we're seeing is that engagement level's massive.
Yeah.
And I think people are commenting on it all the time and face to face as well. It's something that I don't think anybody else is doing in our sector very much.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't we try?
Yeah, it gives you a USP straight off the bat in your market to compete. So moving away from socials, we're going to move on to trade shows. So you exhibit at a lot of trade shows, both locally and nationally, and you get to showcase sort of products that people can visualize, so it gives you a bit of an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips for businesses with less experience that might be going with just a stand and nothing else maybe?
I'd probably use that opportunity to make sure that your salespeople or the people on the stand are going to be able to draw people in to talk to, and I think you can use merchandise to do that, for example, by saying, well, in exchange for items, could they give you an answer based on a question as to whether they're going to be one of your potential clients. That could lead on to something else that you keep on the stand that could be given in exchange for filling out a feedback form. So actually, your merchandise and how you engage with people on the stand can be really effective, can gather a load of intel and a load of data on who you're wanting to deal with and find out whether you've reached out to the right type of people at those events.
Yeah, and it's all it takes is one item that you could use as a competition to collect business cards and generate leads. Yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, one final question from this main section. What do you enjoy most about your internal marketing at Steel City as a company?
I think with Jenny and myself, we've really got the same language and exactly the same mindset in terms of our marketing. We make it fun, we make it different, and we try and make sure that the personality of the company, the team, and how we do it just really comes across. And I don't think it's a chore in any way to do any of our marketing. It's just an absolute pleasure.
And I think if anyone who looks at your company feeds can see that you're having fun, but it's still on brand and professional, and it doesn't look like you're just there to mess around in a sense. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to tie off on the main section and move to our graduate advice / life story sort of section in a second. So as always, we're going to finish off with a final section. It's usually 3 to 4 minutes Q&A where I'd ask guests to provide some graduate advice and tips. As we've on episode 20 now, I've got a little bit of feedback, and I'm conscious that as the show's grown, more listeners are already established marketers. They may not want to listen to tips on interviews or standing out, for example. So we're going to change it slightly as we move forward. I'm going to ask a few light-hearted questions on career progress and success. So no pressure, James, but you'll be the first person to get the brunt of those questions. So yeah, let's ask a few quick questions to finish off. So first of all, Steel City is a family business and you've taken over at the helm from your dad and his business partner. So what was that experience like starting out, and did you feel added pressure to succeed?
It was the right time for me at a point where I'd left uni and gone into another sector to try and learn my spurs and try and earn the opportunity to go into the business. I think I always wanted to and always expected to, but I wanted to learn some business experience first. Coming into the company, I did feel pressure, of course, because the business had been established for a good amount of time, seen a couple of recessions, worked through those, and was doing really well. And I think where I've probably looked back now is that I wanted to try and at least match what my dad and his business partner did, or improve on it. And I think probably, I'll never give myself any credit really, but I think I've probably made it better, and I think that should always be the goal, is to try and improve on something that somebody's done previously.
Yep. And then, do you have any interesting stories from when you were first starting out at all?
I think going in, doing something else first gave me the great learning curve, and it allowed me then to come into the company and start to learn the ropes properly. But also things like looking at processes and immediately spotting something that looked inefficient and that was inefficient, and actually making a really quick change that had quite an impact. It's not easy, but that, you know, those sorts of wins were absolutely fantastic and really gave me the confidence to go forward.
Yeah, and a lot of small wins here and there can make a big difference in the grand scheme. And then one final question. This is going to be quite a short ending because we've had a big middle section. What is one thing that you've learned that might help other business owners or marketers, whether they've been in their company 20 years or they're in the first year?
I'd probably suggest that I'd lean towards having mentors and doing some peer-to-peer learning. It doesn't have to be a course, it doesn't have to be going into a room and sharing stories, but I think that there is somebody out there or some people out there that can help you mentor, and I don't think people should be too proud to admit that they need help within their own business. They don't know all the answers. Some are accidental MDs, some are very established and very knowledgeable people, but I would probably suggest that they should very much look at trying to establish some sort of mentoring, or at least open up and talk to people, because those ideas and sharing can have massive impacts on businesses, and it has on me.
Yeah, I think that's a good example, sort of, as we come back to it. For someone who's been at Steel City for quite a long time, you're learning how to use TikTok from your children.
Exactly, yeah.
So they've mentored you how to use a new platform that, like, I have no idea how to use TikTok either. So
it's very easy.
Whereas for someone who's just starting out in their first few years, like myself, I'd be asking someone of 20 years experience, you know, how do you do this technical thing that I've never done before? So it works both ways.
Absolutely.
So we're going to finish off right there. Hope you've really enjoyed the episode and taken a lot from it. If you want any more information on branded merch, feel free to get in touch with James. I'm sure he'll help you out and answer any questions. I appreciate there might have been a little bit of background noise as we're in the coffee shop, but I hope it wasn't too bad. And thanks for listening. And thank you, James.
Thank you very much, Liam.